When a nation is plunged into its greatest conflict, you'd expect its defenders to fight with the best weapons available. Yet on December 7, 1941, some of the first American pilots to score victories against the attack on Pearl Harbor did so in a fighter many already considered obsolete. This is the story of the Curtiss P-36 Hawk, an aircraft that was essentially an understudy, unexpectedly shoved onto the world's most violent stage to deliver a stunning performance. This is the paradox of a plane that achieved its greatest fame in one desperate, defiant scramble over the smoking ruins of Oahu. To understand the P-36, one must look back to the mid-1930s, a time of dizzying change in military aviation. The age of the fabric-skinned, open-cockpit biplane was ending, and the future belonged to sleek, all-metal monoplanes with retractable landing gear and enclosed canopies. In 1936, the U.S. Army Air Corps, desperate to modernize, held a fly-off competition for its next-generation fighter. The main contenders were the Seversky P-35 and Curtiss-Wright's brand-new Model 75. While the Seversky design ultimately won the initial contract, the Curtiss model showed so much promise that the Army kept it in development. This aircraft, which would become the P-36 Hawk, was a genuine leap forward. It boasted a stress-skin aluminum fuselage, fully retractable landing gear that swiveled 90 degrees to fit flush into the wings, and a powerful Pratt & Whitney R1830 twin Wasp radial engine. When it first flew on May 6, 1935, it represented the cutting edge of American fighter technology. After a series of refinements, Curtiss secured a major production order in 1937, the largest the Army had placed for a fighter since World War I. For a brief shining moment, the P-36 was the future of American air power. But that future was arriving faster than the ink on the contract could dry. The P-36 was a transitional fighter in every sense. Its reliable engine was quickly becoming underpowered compared to the liquid-cooled power plants emerging in Europe. Its armament was shockingly light for the coming war. A single 50 caliber and a single 30 caliber machine gun. Even as the first P-36s rolled off the production line, its replacement was already taking shape. The P-40 Warhawk, essentially a P-36 airframe fitted with a more powerful, liquid-cooled Allison V1710 engine, was in development. The P-36 was becoming obsolete before it had a chance to prove itself. By late 1941, most U.S. P-36s were relegated to training or secondary roles, a fighter without a future, at least in its home country. While the U.S. Army Air Corps was already looking past the P-36, other nations viewed it with desperation. As tensions flared across Europe, Curtiss found a lucrative export market for its fighter, designated the Hawk 75. Its most significant customer was France. In the frantic build-up to war, the French Armée de l'Air ordered hundreds to modernize its squadrons. When Germany invaded in May 1940, these American-built fighters were thrown into the fray. Against the formidable Messerschmitt Bf-109E, the Hawk 75 was outclassed in speed and climb rate. However, French pilots quickly discovered its distinct advantages. It was exceptionally agile, able to outturn the Bf-109, and its rugged airframe could absorb significant punishment. In the hands of skilled pilots, the Hawk became a surprisingly effective killer. In just over a month of fighting, Hawk 75s were credited with over 230 confirmed victories, against only 29 of their own lost in aerial combat. The Hawk's journey didn't end with the fall of France. Germany seized the remaining French aircraft and sold some to Finland, which was locked in a desperate struggle against the Soviet Union. Finnish pilots, masters of getting the most out of their equipment, fell in love with the sturdy American fighter. Between 1941 and 1944, Finnish Air Force Hawk 75s racked up an incredible 190 kills. They nicknamed it Susu Sweetheart, a testament to its reliability and forgiving flight characteristics. From the fields of France to the frozen forests of Karelia, the P-36's export version proved it was a world-class dogfighter, a hero abroad that was already being forgotten at home. On December 7, 1941, at 7:55 a.m., the first wave of Japanese aircraft swept over Oahu. At Wheeler Army Airfield, home to several pursuit squadrons, dozens of fighters were parked wingtip to wingtip, perfect targets. As bombs and bullets ripped across the tarmac, most of America's air power in the Pacific was turned into flaming scrap metal. Amidst the chaos, a handful of pilots from the 46th Pursuit Squadron refused to die on the ground. Their target? The squadron's obsolete P-36 Hawks. 4 pilots scrambled for any aircraft that could still fly. One of them, Second Lieutenant Philip Rasmussen, ran from his barracks still wearing his purple pajamas. He, along with Lieutenants Lewis Sanders, Gordon Sterling Jr., and Harry Brown, found 4 P-36s that were miraculously intact. With smoke blotting out the sky, they took off directly into the maelstrom. Climbing to intercept a formation of Japanese planes over Kaneohe Bay, the 4-ship flight of obsolete Hawks engaged 11 Zeros. The odds were suicidal. Lieutenant Sanders rolled in on a Zero and stitched it with his machine guns, scoring one of the first U.S. Army Air Force's aerial victories of the war. Rasmussen also managed to get on a Zero's tail and send it crashing into the sea. But the enemy fought back with overwhelming force. Rasmussen's P-36 was savaged by cannon and machine gun fire that shattered his canopy and severed his rudder cables. With his plane barely under control, he dove into the clouds and limped back to Wheeler, landing without brakes or a tail wheel. Tragically, Lieutenant Sterling was shot down and killed. Yet against all odds, the underdog Hawks had drawn blood. Climbing to intercept a formation of Japanese planes over Kaneohe Bay, the 4-ship flight of obsolete Hawks engaged 11 Zeros. The odds were suicidal. Lieutenant Sanders rolled in on a Zero and stitched it with his machine guns, scoring one of the first U.S. Army Air Force's aerial victories of the war. Rasmussen also managed to get on a Zero's tail and send it crashing into the sea, but the enemy fought back with overwhelming force. Rasmussen's P-36 was savaged by cannon and machine gun fire that shattered his canopy and severed his rudder cables. With his plane barely under control, he dove into the clouds and limped back to Wheeler, landing without brakes or a tail wheel. Tragically, Lieutenant Sterling was shot down and killed. Yet against all odds, the underdog Hawks had drawn blood. When the skies finally fell silent, the handful of P-36s that took to the air had etched a defiant footnote into history. Lieutenant Sanders and Rasmussen had scored the Army Air Force's first confirmed aerial victories of World War II, proving the old Hawk could still bite. It was a moment of pure, desperate courage, but this moment of glory was also the Hawks' last stand in American service. In the weeks following Pearl Harbor, the surviving P-36s were quickly withdrawn from combat, their role as frontline fighters officially over. The plane that fought back when few others could was unceremoniously retired, its story overshadowed by the legends of the P-51 Mustang, F-4U Corsair, and even its own successor, the P-40. The legacy of the P-36 Hawk is a paradox. It was a fighter born in a moment of transition, a bridge between two eras. In America, it was a stepping stone, yet in the hands of the French and the Finns, it was a formidable weapon. And over the smoke-filled skies of Oahu, it was a hero. The P-36 is a powerful reminder that in war, the most important weapon isn't always the newest or the most powerful. Sometimes, it's the one that's there, ready to fight.